Hello, hello, hello. Day three of this year's dailies. So I just had to check the mic was working. It is past 10:30. I am tired, but I haven't had a chance to actually even read today. So we're trying something different today. We are going to read together, um, and sort of show my process, as it were. Um, Welcome tips and advice. Be gentle. um, but yeah, this is sort of how I would go about studying, albeit being super tired and being this late. I might not go down every rabbit hole I see, but let's take the time. Today's reading is Genesis 8 till Genesis 11. And I'm actually not going to listen to it today. I'll just read it. So this might be somewhat boring. Feel free to read along. Feel free to do your own thing at this time. Um, but if you're here, thank you. And let's jump in. I still haven't set up my streaming uh, system software or as I'd want. But alas, this seems to not be failing too badly. So, um, yeah, why not? Let's go. I also don't know if there's like copyright and stuff with sharing. So how I tend to go through this, or how I'm going through this time, at least, is I've got a note up, and this is sort of my note taking app capacities. Um, I do intend to do a video about it. But I just sort of take bullet points, things that jump out at me, things that stick out to me, and I tag it as I go. So I might add tags as I'm going to, I guess, categories or themes that stand out so that I can resurface this note later on. So let's go. For context, Noah's just had this flood. Noah hasn't had the flood, but the flood has just happened. Methuselah died, bringing the flood, and we're now here. And God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. The first thing that jumps out to me, and all the time this does, is when God remembered Noah. Because I intuitively know God didn't forget Noah because it was God that put him in the ark, God closed the ark, and had designed it to keep him. When it says remembered, it is itself a root word. Mention, remember, remembrance, record. Mindful, thinking, bring to remembrance, record. No miscellaneous uses. These number of times speak to the number of times that this word occurs, and the number of times it's used in a certain way. So it's used as remember literally 172 times. It's used as mention 21, remembrance, etc. Um, I need to look into what this carnival and Hifil means. If you know, please do drop a comment. Um, as I keep going through it, I am mindful of the fact that um, just because a word might mean something like this doesn't necessarily mean that's the context or that's the manner in which it's being used. So if I'm to say, for instance, um, you know, being a 90s, 80s child, I might say, oh, that show was wicked. And if you were to go through the etymology of the word wicked and look at what it means and how many times it's used, you will get a sense maybe of what I mean. Um, but if you get too bogged down in the details of the word wicked, you will miss the point, because in as much as it's means something, that's not at all and actually far removed from the meaning with which I intend it when I read or when I say that show was wicked or that move was wicked. Um, and so there is a greater context to be considered here. And as I'm reading the word remembered, that comes to mind. So that in as much as the word itself means to recall something, that you've forgotten, as we've seen, in a context here it might be different. And that's where I might switch language, because what's um, what's been quite good is that oh, it wants me to. There you go. Um, so I can also do this with an interlinear and just have where's my interlinear? Oh, is it not? Okay, it would probably be. Oh, I didn't realize I was looking at the mobile version. This is also what ends up happening is I get distracted by various things. But what I want is um, I want the interlinear. I imagine that's not going to be here. That's going to be in uh, study tools. Interlinear. No, actually, well, not interlinear. I want the um, parallel. Yeah, so as you can see, I'm learning this just as much as I'm talking about it. That's what I want, the parallel. So let's extend this a little bit. The amplifier tends to do a good job of trying to give context with even the words. So if I close that down a little bit, and that's not resizing, that's my but yeah, cool, that's fine. I can remember and thought kindly of not every living thing. Yeah. Again, I'm in Cattle's use here. But the good folks are amplified is suggesting that all the animals, which makes sense. So what Genesis 1 seems to suggest to me is God had exhausted the wrath of his judgment. Well, I mean, I'm not going to make a case for, the Bible is against animal cruelty with this, but I do think it's interesting that it's not just Noah. That's, I could have said Noah and his family were remembered. But that the Bible sort of notes Noah and every animal is remembered. Um, that stands out to me. That sticks out. I'm just going to make a note of it. And here we also see that the nature of the flood wasn't just rain. It wasn't just rain coming down. It was indeed, in as much as it was raining, the pouring rain from the sky is restrained. There were also subterranean waters, fountains of the deep that seem to have been opened. Um, and so water sprang out from within the earth as well. Um, and after 150 days, almost half a year, the water's diminished. So it had rained for 5 months. That's crazy. Yeah, this is modern day Turkey, where it's believed in the mountains of Ararat that the ark came to rest. This, like with the location of Eden. So when we were reading Eden, I said when we were reading, if you've read Genesis, Eden is denoted by some rivers, and by the description and specificity of it, I am inclined to believe the people had a knowledge of where Eden was, like physically. I think by the reference here, I wouldn't be surprised if they knew where the ark was in that time. So as they're writing this, it came to rest in the mountains of Ararat. Um, I imagine it's passed down. No one would have said that's where we came to land, and then his sons would know, and their sons would know. Um, and where it's lost to history now, I again wonder if they knew if people could go and see the ark, as treacherous as that journey would be um, at the time. Or it seemed, I wonder if they knew exactly where the ark was and what that might have meant for faith. Waters continued to decrease until the 10th month. On the first day of the 10th, the tops of mountains were seen. Hmm. I wonder what the significance is of So I'll also write down questions that I will come to have a look at later. Um, and I do wonder why send out a raven first and then a dove afterwards. Um, we'll see. They had been in the ark for 1 year and 10 days. Interesting. You never know when some of these numbers will become relevant or significant later on. Um, so let's just wait for that. Here we have this promise that God will never do this again. Will never destroy the world again. It's interesting that every animal is made to be fearful of man. In verse 2 of chapter 9. Every moving thing that lives shall be fruitful. You'll give it anything, as I gave you the green plants and vegetables. But you shall not eat meat along with its life that is the blood. So, for an unnecessary point. Well, it's a point to make. I'm gonna think it, but I get the impression that what we have here is the legitimacy of the omnivorous diet being presented here. You know. So this is also where sometimes I switch between, because here we're starting to add inferences now, albeit for translation purposes. But sometimes I just like to go back to the original. In 9:4, but the flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall you not eat. Tying in the life of the animal with the blood of the animal, I think is more than just sort of illustrative. I can't remember the word, but I think it's more than just proverbial. Uh, I think this sets up the fact or the reason why Christ's blood specifically had to be poured. There is the element of, you know, if you lose too much blood, you die. Blood is like the lifeline in your being coursed throughout the body. But I think there's something significant here. We're tying the life with the blood. And so they were not to eat of animals with the blood in it, which, there's biological reasons why not. There's health reasons why not. But I think it's interesting that it's specified here to this extent. It stands out, you know, over here. So 905. This is almost lifting up man's life as significant more than that of just the animal, because for your lifeblood, so for the blood of a person, um, there is an accounting that needs to be made. The life of a person, there's an accounting that needs to be made, be it from an animal, if that animal should take it, or from another person through murder. That life will need to be accounted for. And again, we're seeing the intentionality with which God creates each and every being. Um, because we were made in His image. So, um, because we're made in God's image, our lives are accounted for by God, or God demands an accounting for our lives. We've got a rainbow introduced here. Side note, and I promise I wouldn't go into too much of these. I find it interesting that the rainbow is what's been co-opted by certain movements to represent them. There is an element of their diversity, but the fact that, this is where it's introduced in the Bible is significant to me at the very least. I won't say much more on that front. And it's interesting, right, that when water is caught or when light is caught in water, it creates a rainbow. which is supposed to remind God of the fact that He is never going to use water to blot out light, the light of life, ever again. I think that's cool. And as much as it wasn't raining at the time, and so you'd wonder how a rainbow could be formed, I imagine, after um, the extended period of time within which the rain was falling, that there might still be some thing going on in the atmosphere that might result in there being rain. Uh, or if God created the whole universe, He can put a rainbow in the sky, innit? Then you have that peculiar instance where one of Noah's sons goes in and sees him naked, in a drunken stupor, as it might be, because he was drinking out the vineyard. Uh, it's all quite peculiar, and I've heard some description of it maybe being a euphemism. There's actually a biblical backing for that, for the description of a man seeing the nakedness of his father as a euphemism. But alas, that begs the question as to why the other two brothers walked backwards with a blanket to cover the nakedness of their father. That speaks to it being very much a practical, physical thing. Um, but yeah, I forgot where I went. Chapter 9. Let's mark chapter 10. Ham, I believe, was one that was cursed. His sons, we have Nimrod, who became a mighty on earth. And I think this is referring to the legend, as it were, of Nimrod. Um, but I'll make a note of it actually for later. Oh, I hate when it does that. And it sticks out to me, who is this Nimrod dude? And I think that's worthy of a further investigation. Excuse me. I have another sort of bit of genealogy there. There's a bit of interesting things here. In 11 verse 1, it says the whole earth spoke one language. But we have just seen it say, these are descendants of Ham according to their constituent groups, according to their languages, by their land and by their nation. This would be something to look into. I think it's always good. I am sort of skim reading some of these. I even lost my place, sorry. But it's useful to see these at the very least, and I feel like I get lucky enough to remember them when they become relevant, if they become relevant later on. But yeah, those genealogies and this begat that and that begat that can be tedious sometimes. I think are useful. So, pardon. Okay. I was just curious as to what it said with Ben Elohim. That's interesting that the building of the tower was in rebellion to God. I think it'll be interesting to see what that means. And this again is where I think sometimes the Bible places more emphasis on the guys that sort of matter to the story. We're going to get the genealogy of generations of Shem, and I think specifically, and as they've noticed here, because he uh, is an ancestor of Abraham. Excuse me, I'm also sort of oh, thanks, mom. um, Pastor is in the comments watching. Uh, um, yes. Records of generations of Shem. Shem being a ancestor of Abraham. We're going to get to see some of his genealogy. And as we did earlier on, it would be a fun experiment to look at what the meanings of these names mean. Um, I don't say that to say, anytime we find something interesting, that it becomes a formula that we look for elsewhere. Because that's just a source of pain. That's not necessary. But some of these things are interesting. Remember that Noah had lived 900 years, right? And Shem being one of his sons, we're quickly seeing the number of years they're living reduce. Shem lived 500 years. Prash lived 400 years. 500 and about, so he lived 600 years altogether because he was 100 years old when he had, I'm not even going to try, Arpakshad. So he lived about 600 years. Arpachshad, 35, becomes the father of Shelah, is 403 years. So he lived altogether there 438 years, compared to, again, Noah's 900, Methuselah's, significantly long lives. So we're already starting to see the lives, I mean, still in the hundreds of years, but we're starting to see them break down. Apparently, Ade is watching on VR. Am I big or is my head, just my head is big? And thank you guys for being here again. It's encouraging, especially as I find myself drifting a little bit and longing for my bed. Again, we've got like 464 years here for Eba. So we're really starting to see. And the reason I point that out is to suggest after the flood, was there some sort of geological aftermath for the earth in and of itself that resulted in the lifespans becoming shorter? If rain had fallen for that long, and the earth had been inhabitable for a whole year and a bit, you know, what were the consequences on a geographic, on a geological le- um, level to the earth, and would that have consequences for some of these shorter lifespans in comparison to those pre-flood? So we start to see Terah. Terah was the father of Abraham. Yeah, yeah. Ade's just pointing out the fact that uh, Abraham was alive when Noah was around. Um, and considering Noah lived, yeah, that's exactly it. We're going to do the maths. Noah lived 900 years. Let's just find that again. Um, actually, let's bring in some AI friends for that. So let's grab Claude. Let's just go to my Bible project. And let's say can't spell children. Yeah. So, Pastor Laya, my mom's just said after the flood, the atmosphere would have shifted, and that would have resulted in the lives of men becoming shorter, and that's what we are literally seeing from Genesis 11 and the accounts of the years. Um, so again, this is the sort of thing that I like to use. Uh, AI for, where it's somewhat inconsequential to the doctrine or to what really matters, but it's a quick sort of um, textual analysis that will show this. But I can get AI to do it, and somewhat trust the results because it's not generating something brand new. It's looking at a clearly defined context, which is Genesis. So Noah was 600 years at the flood, and it gives references, and that's one reason I like Claude. He lived 350 years after it and died at 950 years old. So, considering those 350 years, we would have had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Shem's line up until, yeah, up until Terah, who was Abraham's dad, would have lived. Um, and was alive for 58 years of Noah's life. So, as Ade said, Abraham was around. He was born 292 post flood, and Noah lived 350 years after the flood. So that's quite interesting. Um, and this again just sort of points out what I said about the nature of the Bible and the emphasis it places on some people. Ham and Japheth don't get that level of granularity in the detail of their genealogies as Shem does, because Shem is significant to Abraham, ultimately to Christ as well. Um, all right, Zachary's just got up. My son's just got up. Um, so I'm going to, yeah, yeah, cool. It just goes up to Terra, I'm going to read this bit in a little bit. Okay, and he just picked up. It's like, cool, I'll just finish this off then. Um, I think the other thing that's significant here is you got all of these guys giving birth and sort of continuing the line of Shem. And then we get to Abraham, Nahor, Haran, and Haran's the father of Lot. Haran died before his father Terah, um, and so Abraham and Nahor took wives. Sarai, Sarah was barren; she did not have a child. Terah took Abraham his son, and Lot the son of Haran his grandson, and Sarah his daughter-in-law. And they went out together to go from Ur to of the Chaldeans into the land of Canaan. Yeah. So Sarai being barren here would be very significant, because we've had this genealogy and they're aware, and as Adi said, they actually would have they actually would have oh, I forgot my line of thought there. But yeah, cool. And then Terah died in Haran. Cool. So that's the reading. So I'll just quickly go in and mark that. Mark our chapters as read. And tomorrow, and this is one of the beautiful things about the chronological plan, up until Terran, we're skipping to Job. So we're not even going to be in Genesis tomorrow. We'll be in Job 1 to 5, because Job is actually one of the oldest books in the Bible and likely would have happened around that same time. Adi's pointing out that Noah would have been around during the Tower of Babel. And what language would it have been? So that would be my question for you guys, for us all. What language were they speaking at the time of Babel, that universal language that God then broke apart into very different languages, forcing them to spread? Um, I am of the opinion that it probably was some pre-Hebrew. Chuck Missler has an interesting anecdote that points to it that maybe we can look at tomorrow. But I'm going to head off to bed. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Ade. Thank you, Pasalaya, for the comments. And yeah, I hope you guys are encouraged to read this year. Let's make the Bible part of our daily and yeah, move forward. Peace out, guys, and good night.